What's up guys, my name is Kale, this is the Nerf Pro Stryfe X, and I am probably the only reviewer who has run this blaster in an actual tournament. So what is the Pro? Think of the Pro? Well, that's what we're here to talk about. Let's get into it. Now, by the time this review comes out, there are probably already a ton of reviews about it. But I wanted to offer my perspective as someone who tours the country, playing in competitive tournaments on a pro level, and see if my perspective is a little different, a little fresh. And although I'm usually the more harsh person on the blasters, I think you might be surprised by the answer. Alright, so first off, let's take a look at this box, because it's a pretty cool looking box in terms of the graphics and everything. And of course, like the blaster itself, it has a similar color scheme, which has a lot of good contrast. It says the blaster performs in the 150 FPS range. There's a few more details, like the fact that it's semi-auto, and of course the amount of darts that it comes with, and that there's included eye protection, which is pretty cool. Now, if we go back and look at the back of the box, we'll see here that there's actually a little graphic that says, engineered exclusively for Nerf Pro AccuStrike half darts and Nerf Pro AccuStrike magazines. And it does say each sold separately subject to availability, which means that they intend to sell these as refillable items. Now let's check out what comes inside the box. Starting with the blaster itself. Starting in the back, we've got that same familiar end strike attachment points for stocks. The grip has actually been extended, and the attachment point for slings has been moved down. It's pretty comfortable for my adult size hands. Then we've got our rev trigger here. We've got our pusher trigger. We've got a lockdown here that's mechanical. We've got our mag well with the mag ejection paddle right here. We've got an expanded cage with a cool little graphic that says Stryfe X in a very contrasty white. We've got a jam door here. Another sling attachment point for a 2-point sling. We've got some Picatinny up top that appears to be somewhat similar to Rival. Up in front we have no end strike barrel lug, and we'll talk more about that later. Next we have a self-enclosed battery that attaches just like this. We also get a USB-C charging cable for that battery, a brand new magazine in the form of a Nerf AccuStrike Pro Mag, and 30 of Nerf's new AccuStrike half-length Pro darts, plus some iPro. How thoughtful. When I hold a blaster, it's that same familiar shape we're used to with a regular Stryfe. And here is a regular Stryfe just for comparison. Some of the things that have changed is, of course, the style of rail. You can also see that there's an expanded section of the shell here to account for what is most likely a larger cage and motors. We also have an exclusively half-length magwell, but it's still the same rough size. The location of the trigger and rev trigger are the same, but the location of the magazine release is in a different area. Of course, the battery is also different, and there's the addition of this battery release tab. In order to release the battery, you have to press this button down here first, then pull back, allowing you to take the battery out. Putting the battery back in is easier. Done. Now let's hear it rev up. Like, damn, that was fast and loud.
What did he say?
I also noticed that there is no safety on the jam door, meaning that you can rev while that jam door is open. Now let's talk for a second about price. This blaster retails for about $120. And of course, we're gonna have to test the performance to see if we think it's worth it. Starting out, of course, with an FPS test. And to figure out how it stacks up against the competition, we'll actually be testing 3 different dart types today. The darts that it comes with, the Dart Zone Max darts, which are the ones that come with the Omnia Pro, and third is gonna be the Worker Gen 3s, which are my personal choice for competitive play. For the included darts, we had a high of 169 and a low of 141 with an FPS spread of 28 FPS and an average of 157. For the Dart Zone Max darts, we had a high of 156, a low of 138, an FPS spread of 24, and an average of 147. For the Worker Gen 3 darts, we had a high of 161, a low of 147, an FPS spread of 14, and an average of 157 FPS. So with its included darts, it's definitely hitting that 150 promised on the box. With Dart Zone Max darts, it's hitting pretty much at that standard performance, and again with worker darts, it's actually hitting a little above that performance. Now it's time to see how accurate this blaster, so let's head back out there. Now we've backed things up to about 40 feet. We're going to start with the included ammo and see how accurate it is. 5 shots, here we go. That's a hit. Oh, near miss. Hit. 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 Now we're going to shoot 5 of the max darts. Oh, that was so close. Now we got 5 of the worker darts, and let's see if they're any different. Now this one scored a 5 out of 5, so every one that I shot hit the target inside the target, not on the rim. But you'll notice that the second to last shot actually hit the back and then bounced back out. So it did go in, even though at first glance it might look like it actually didn't. Now due to the thickness in the head and its shape not being tapered, I'm sure that you guys are wondering, and I'm also wondering, how this thing will perform in a spring-powered blaster that has a barrel with tight tolerances that it has to fit through. Against my better judgment, I'm gonna try that in a blaster we're currently reviewing and see if it fires a couple of them. All right, here we go. That was not good. Okay, there's still hope yet. Okay, it fires. We had one little flub going on there, but it could have been the dart, it could have been the blaster, but it was only one, so that's a good sign, actually. I'm surprised. Anyways, let's head back inside and talk about this thing. In terms of accuracy, these darts were pretty much right on top of each other, so I don't think you'd go wrong with using any of them. If you were going to Ragnarocktober Fest and playing King of the Hill, this blaster would come in perfectly with either its included ammo or the worker darts for that 160 cap on flywheelers. However, if you were going to play at a Superstock club, which usually caps off at 150, then you would probably want to go with something more like the max darts, because the other two would just be shooting too hot. Not by much, but they would. Now let's talk about the magazine. This is the new Nerf Pro half-length magazine, and it holds 15 darts. Now, if you're thinking this looks a lot like a straight Talon, I'd agree with you, because it does. It's very stripped down, it's got a light texture on the outside here. It is completely opaque, so you can't see through it on any side, but it does have a little marking here with the dart facing forward to show that it carries 15 darts. Cool thing is that this blaster comes with 30 darts, which means you can fill this one up twice. And in case you're wondering, this magazine actually does fit and feed out of other half-length Talon compatible blasters. Don't quote me on this, but I had heard somewhere that these mags were going to be sold separately for around $7 a piece. If so, that makes them a very compelling option. Definitely undercutting the market here, and some people might switch to these even if they don't have the Stryfe X, simply because of price. The plastic seems okay, not particularly good or particularly bad, just kind of middle of the pack. I will say that I've had an issue with the spring catching around the time where I put 5 darts in, but it hasn't caused any issues with feeding. It just kind of gets stuck for a second as I'm pushing in darts. We'll have to see how that holds up over time. Me personally though, I prefer to use other magazines. So why don't we talk about the other magazines that this blaster is compatible with. Starting off the straight Talon. Catches and feeds reliably. Just like its own magazine though, you're not going to be doing any gravity drops with this one. To be expected, it also fits the banana mags. And an orange one looks pretty good on this blaster. Again, no gravity drops. I did try every Dart Zone mag that I own, including this Dart Zone Pro Mark III mag, the 1.2 mag, the Mark IV mag, or a Nexus Pro mag. It also doesn't fit the new X-Shot Pro mags. It does, however, fit the Tryon mags. Still no gravity drop. And it also fits the Unicorn mags. Again, no gravity drop. Now, if a gravity drop is important to you, or you just want a higher capacity, you might want to consider the Tamagotchi mags.
What?
They fit in nicely, and you can in fact gravity drop them. And as you might have guessed, that means that they also fit the new Coda mags. Nice and secure, and you still get a gravity drop. I don't have any katanas, so I can't test it, but based on the fact it doesn't take dart zone geometry, which is similar in most cases to the katana mags, I'm going to say it probably doesn't take those either. So now that we've talked about mag compatibility, one of the next things I wanted to talk about is this battery here, and some of the benefits of having it. Now, it is a proprietary battery, which means at the moment there are no other blasters that it fits for. And while that is kind of a bummer, we actually don't know what Hasbro is going to do in the future, and if any other blasters will be able to use this exact battery. But even if this is a standalone, there are some really good benefits about it that I'd like to talk about. First of all is the safety component. Now, if you've already seen Wacom's video, he takes it apart, kind of shows what's inside, but basically all of the safety mechanisms for the battery are contained within this container, and then there's the 3S LiPo. So, although many of us feel comfortable with LiPo batteries already, there are certain safety features that we have to worry about, like LiPo alarms, monitoring the bag when we're charging it, and also having a bag that's fire resistant in case the battery starts on fire, which is 100% possible for any given battery. There are also certain charging levels that you have to have a battery at in order to store it, and some other things that make it a little bit more complicated and therefore less accessible to the everyday Joe. Now, I use all of those things: LiPo alarms, bags, a LiPo charger, and LiPo batteries for other blasters that I own. But because of the ease of use, I find myself picking up this blaster more now than any other flywheeler that I own. At the moment, I do not know if they will sell replacement batteries in the future or extra batteries, but they don't currently. But the fact that this is USB-C really makes this a lot easier of a pill to swallow. In fact, there is a benefit to it having USB-C, which is that you can plug it into portable power, which kind of helps me ensure that it's usable all day long, because you can simply plug it in when you're resting, and with this little switch and a pop, it's out and ready to charge. And that's something I feel like no one's talking about. Like, that's a really big benefit of this battery style, and something that shouldn't be overlooked. I mean, you could use these to charge your phone and your blaster. That's pretty cool, right? I personally just like this one because I can plug it into the wall directly to charge it while I'm charging my device at home. And I like this one because it has a digital screen readout right here that allows me to see the amount of voltage that each device is getting. If you're interested in getting either of the ones that I have, I'll leave links down in the description below, but just know you don't have to use these exact ones. I don't know or remember off the top of my head what the full capacity of this blaster is, but I will say it uses it very efficiently. So much so that I only charged it once for all of the testing, all of the gameplay, including the tournament that I used it in. Now, I did watch the Wacom review and him saying that the parts inside were much more simple than he wanted it to be, and I understand that sentiment, but this is one of those cases where the sum of its parts are worth more than the parts themselves, or at least that's how I feel about it. So a few things that I didn't really like about this blaster was some of the changes that they made aesthetically to this blaster, which made it no longer compatible with some of the kits that are out there. For instance, the Chris Vector kit. Now, that one relies on an N-Strike lug, which they have removed, and no doubt that's on purpose. There's the possibility that it's for performance, so that they don't want people attaching stuff and affecting the performance, but I think the more likely thing is that they don't want these aftermarket kits. They are aware of them, and they don't want these aftermarket kits to go on here and make something with Nerf's name on it look, well, kind of like an airsoft gun or something just a little too serious. The decision to go with this rival adjacent rail also actually makes sense to me. Initially, I didn't like it, but when I say it out loud, of course. Rival was their most pro line, then they brought out the Nerf Gelfire, which also has a rival adjacent rail on it, because that was their next more high-performing line. Now their highest performing dart blaster, the Nerf Pro, uses that same thing. Also, although it's annoying we can't put on other kits, we can use existing rival attachments. Slap on the Raider stock, and this Nerf Rival red dot sight, or maybe even the Nerf Rival flashlight foregrip listed here, which I don't actually own. And you've got yourself somewhat of an operator type loadout. And I actually really like the way that this looks. Not to mention, considering that this is a toy red dot sight, it actually performs pretty much exactly like you would need it to. I'll throw a link to these items in the description below in case you're interested in picking them up. In terms of darts, I also am not a huge fan of the idea of these AccuStrike darts, although they did perform pretty well in this blaster, and I did test and you can shoot them out of a Springer. I don't think that they perform the best. They kind of just recycled an old design and cut it in half. I do think that the foam is a little tougher this time around. It's not exactly recycled, more that it's an updated version. And if you look closely inside of here, you can see that these are really concave wheels, which means that they perform pretty decently with narrow heads. In fact, a lot of high crush wheels perform best with narrow heads these days, making them more compatible with Springers. Like I said, I just really don't see the benefit of them having chosen that dart. That also begs the question of how expensive those darts might be if they are purchased separately. But currently on Amazon, you can get 75 of these full-length AccuStrikes for about $14.
Nope.
And that's a really expensive dart, especially when you compare them to like something like Max darts were around $15 for 150, which is twice as much, or around $16 for a box of 200 Worker Gen 3s. Of course, I'll leave links to all of these items down below in case you want to purchase any of them. When it comes to how this blaster stacks up against the competition, we have to define what we want to compare it against. In this case, I think the best comparison would be between other flywheelers that are injection molded that serve the pro category from big box brands. And in that regard, there are only 3 blasters that meet this criteria. Number 1, of course, is this blaster itself. Number 2 is the Nerf Pro Mark III. And the last one is the Omnia. Now when it comes to the Omnia Pro, I just don't think that it actually stacks up against this blaster at all. I mean, for starters, you have the fact that it's on recall for 2 issues. The first issue being the misaligned flywheels, which has darts flying off to the right. The second is the absolute insane trigger delay. It has an electronic trigger that has such an insane delay that it's pretty much a full second from the time you pull the trigger to a dart leaving. And that makes it not a competent competitive blaster, in my opinion. Man, try to say that 5 times fast. Competent competitive, competent competitive, competent competitive, competent competitive, competent competitive. Anyways, that doesn't mean I don't like the idea of that blaster. It's just really not at the pro tier, and probably why it came out under the Max line and not the Pro line. And if they are to revamp it, I would definitely recommend it for casual and club level gameplay, just not a tournament. Now, I think the blaster that actually gives the Stryfe X any real competition in this category is the Mark III. It has a mechanical trigger, it's developed by a company's Pro line, and it's a flywheeler. I used a stock Mark III in the Dartzone Pro tournament and a modified one during the Foam Pro Tour. And although this blaster does have its quirks, it does a lot of things for the price tag. When it dropped, it was $130, which is actually $10 more than the Stryfe X is at its launch date. But these days, you can pick one of these up on sale. I saw them for $60 a piece a few weeks ago on Amazon, and at the moment of this video, it's actually on sale for $30, though I don't know how long that's gonna last. If you're on a budget, this is the alternative that I would pick to the Stryfe X. But if you're not on a budget, I would still pick the Stryfe X for a strictly competitive setting. And part of the reason for that is the size. I mean, this blaster is significantly bigger. This blaster can get accessories to make it a primary or a secondary. This blaster is basically just the primary. The other thing is that this blaster just works. This is hands down the most reliable out of the 3, and I have pushed the limits on all of them. But if you want full comparison videos, let me know down in the comments and maybe I'll do one. Now, the flip side of that coin on price that a lot of people are going to talk about is, well, I could build my own Stryfe for that price. Yeah, that part is probably true, and if you want a highly modified Stryfe with some of these kits, maybe you are better off going that route. On the flip side of that, if you were to pay someone to build that Stryfe or buy that Stryfe pre-built, it would be around this price of this blaster or more. I went through Facebook Marketplace and Etsy, but all in all, what I saw was that you could get a pre-built Stryfe with similar performance to this somewhere ranging between $100 and $200. Either way, the fact that I could go on Amazon, possibly go in stores to like Walmart and Target if it reaches there, and just go get something right off the shelf or within 2-day shipping that just performs at 160 at a pro level consistently with a really crisp mechanical trigger in a really small form size with a battery that performs right out of the box is exactly why I think this blaster is worth $120. Of course, when we're talking about this blaster, we also have to talk about Nerf Ball. I did actually get to play some version of Nerf Ball, kind of filling in the blanks before we knew what Nerf Ball really was, and there will be a video coming out in the near future about that. But since then, Nerf has actually finally released the rule set and shown off promotional material for the blaster and the game mode. And in terms of its context of Nerf Ball, I think this is the perfect blaster for the sport that they developed. Now, we have a community member inside the mothership who's designed and pushed through a lot of the parts of this project. But we've also got community members like Luke from Out of Darts, who worked heavily on this project as well. I know that some people might look at this and be like, Nerf has stolen everything from the community and just rehashed it in an injection mold. But in reality, this blaster is a culmination of multiple members giving influence to Nerf and making them recognize us as a hobby. In all likelihood, Nerf actually doesn't necessarily want this project to succeed. We've been waiting so long for Nerf to jump onto this field and participate in Nerf Pro that if we don't put our money where our mouth is and support this blaster, that it's likely that this project in its entirety could get scrapped and we may not see another opportunity for growth in the Pro category again. However, if we reward them for having listened to us, I really think that this could be the start of a new era of Nerf Pro from the mothership, and I really hope that it is. I hope that this gives you a fresh perspective from a pro player and also makes you consider picking one of these up and making sure that the community puts its money where its mouth is. But if you disagree, that's okay too. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. So if you guys like the kind of content that I'm putting out, please consider mag dumping that like button, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell so that you can be the first to know when I drop another video. We've got a ton of fun projects coming up, including the testing Nerf Ball video, another episode of Traveling for Nerf where we go to Ragnarocktober, and some other challenge videos, plus a giveaway that we're working on. So stay tuned for that. That's all I have for you guys today. And until next time on the King of Games, have a blast.
Hit! I got you. Red. Watch out for Toa. Got him. You better be ready.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna try. Yeah, I got hit.